Hi, I'm Alison Ellis of RealFlowerBusiness.com. I'm going to share with you some of my best insider tips on how to make a bridal bouquet. Where do you start? Where do you start when you're doing a wedding? For me, I actually always start with the bridal bouquet. Once I have all my flowers processed, cleaned, unwrapped, all the good stuff, make sure there's enough water in all the buckets, the very first thing I do is the bridal bouquet. I know some people end with the bridal bouquet. They make that the last thing they do, but for me, it's the very first thing to do. And I'm going to show you how I do it. The first thing that I do is I kit out, that's what I call it, I kit out my bouquet. So I count all the stems in my recipe, I get them all ready, I'll put them in a jar or a bucket or a few jars and a few buckets depending on the types of flowers I'm using. And then I just know that I have everything that I'm going to be working with right here in front of me, and then I can just build my bouquet from there. So I'm going to show you the simplest, easiest way to make a bridal bouquet, the way I was taught to make a bridal bouquet in a classic, traditional sort of spiral shape. It is the tried and true method for making a bridal bouquet, and with a little practice, it gets really, really easy. I almost always make my bouquets this way because it's just, to me, the best way to do it. So I'll show you how I do that now. So let's get started with a very simple bridal bouquet. This is actually not my typical bridal bouquet style. This bride actually wants something that's a little more wild, a little less arranged looking, but I'm still going to use my spiral traditional bouquet style to get it started. And if I want to make it a little more wild, I can deviate from this traditional way that I make a bouquet. But this to me is the tried and true way to start. So I usually pick a few stems to start with. That'll be like the very beginning of my bouquet. And what I have found over the years is like a nice spray rose combo helps me get that very first spiral going. So you start with your first stem, and then I place a stem just to the side of it. And I'm going to continue placing stems and twisting, doing a slight half twist to the left or to the right, clockwise. I twist clockwise. You can twist whatever way you like, but that's how I do it to get my spiral, and then all my stems are in the same way. Excuse me, in the same direction. And there's not a lot of rhyme or reason to what I pick when, other than color. I like to kit out everything so it's just available. I have my whole recipe in front of me here so I can see with my very own eyes exactly what I have to work with. And I can see when I'm about to run out of something or if I might want more of something. And even though I clean the flowers ahead of time, I will obviously clean as I go as needed. So this bouquet is really meant to be kind of messy. She wants it blues, she wants it pinks, a little bit of lavender. I've got some gladiolas, which I have wired. So I wired the gladiolas, and then I put them on a rose stem, because gladiolas are actually one of the bride's not only just favorite flowers, but it's very meaningful to her. Her father, her grandmother, they have an affinity for gladiolas. So I'm going to keep building and twisting, building and twisting. So now that I've placed my glad, I'm working with a little bit of oregano here on the other side, and then I'm going to twist. And so by constantly, consistently turning my bouquet, that's going to help ensure that perfect spiral. And I was always taught that a really, truly perfectly made spiral bouquet will stand on its own, and I have to say that is usually the case. Every now and again, you got to get a little funky and add something to the outside of your spiral, and that can hinder its ability to stand. But for the most part, my bouquets do tend to stand, and that's also how I photograph them. So I'm just going to keep continuing like this. I'm looking for shape. I'm looking for, do I want to have something pokey here to balance out the something pokey here? It's just a little bit of a balancing act. And it's a little bit of an experiment, right? We're always experimenting. Can never know for certain that your first go at a bouquet is going to be its best. I'm adding a little ranunculus there. And what I'm also doing is thinking about the natural habit of the flower. So if it's something that might droop or wilt, or even if it's something that might look like it droops or wilts, it doesn't matter if something's actually dead if the customer thinks it looks dead, right? That's a really, really important thing. It doesn't matter if it's alive, but the customer thinks it looks like it's falling over. So I'm balancing color. I'm balancing shape. Again, you know, it's tricky when it's not a style that you, I don't want to say that you love or like, but when it's not a style you would pick, it can sometimes be tricky. And I will take more than one attempt at sort of looking at what should be my next flower, what needs to happen next. You can always go back, you can always redo it, but I must admit I feel like a particularly efficient, winning florist when I don't have to remake anything. When I get it on the first try, that feels pretty special. So now I'm continuing my twist. So the shape you'll see is, I don't know, I'll be honest, it looks better on the video than it does in real life in terms of shape. The shape is a little not super fantastic yet, but that's why we keep building, right? We're not done yet. And it doesn't stay like a perfect circle unless you design it that way. I'm going to pull off some side buds of this nigella. Can we just like appreciate this nigella for a minute? It's so pretty. So pretty. And my bride also, from what I've noticed from her Pinterest board, really seems to like when colors are grouped. So I'm trying to keep that in mind as well as I'm working my way through this design. I'm going to add another glad over here. So kind of got them on opposite sides at the moment. And I'm going to keep building and show you what we got. So I'm almost done with my wild bouquet. Got a few more pieces to add. Whenever I add stock, I am ruthless about plucking the petals, the actual blooms right off, because if they're flowering today, they will not be flowering tomorrow. And so I always anticipate. Anticipation is what it's all about. You got to anticipate what these flowers are going to look like tomorrow, right? Because they are not for today. We have to make sure they are just right for tomorrow. Add a couple more touches of this nigella. I've got a little more of this lavender lisianthus. Which I think just adds a super cool touch. And here's a great example of what I mean by like if it looks droopy, this is totally fine. It's turgid, it's healthy, but I'm still going to cut it off. I'm actually going to pinch it right off because if it looks like this, my customer might think it is starting to die. And so it doesn't matter that it's fresh and turgid and lovely. If it looks like it's wilty, we want to deal with that. Another way I could deal with that is just simply by turning it up. So like instead of drooping down, they look up. But of course that doesn't work for every flower every time, so it depends on what it is. This ranunculus would be a good example. Again, it's pretty turgid, but if I have it hanging down, it might look like it's droopy. So I simply may just turn it. So see what I'm doing here? Instead of just down, I'm just turning it, just twisting it up a little bit so that it faces the sun. I just remember learning that from someone a long time ago in a land far, far away, that if you're ever unsure, have the flowers sort of look up like they're looking for the sun, as that is their natural growth pattern. It can help them look more in the right place that way. So I'm just filling in with a little bit of this nigella. It is just, I love when nigella comes in nice. It just makes me happy to have nice nigella. I cut this lavender from my garden. It is so super short, but I'm probably going to just tuck it in a little bit around the edges. My bride does like grouping, so it's probably okay to just sort of have it in little subtle moments. Things from my garden in this bouquet are the lavender and stilbe, and then the oregano, which are these lavendery, pretty little flowers there. But those are the only things that I grew. I really do like to include a little something from my garden for my customers whenever I can. So I've got a couple of Lysianthus left. I'm probably going to work these in. Yeah, probably like around the edges. These aren't quite as droopy, but again, I'll probably try to position them so they're facing up a bit. Continue to twist. How we doing? How we doing here? And then, yeah, I'm going to stick it over here on this side. Okay, so this is our bridal bouquet. Only one attempt. I'm digging it. I think this is pretty much exactly what she's looking for. I might wiggle some of these roses a little bit, try to loosen a couple of things. Sometimes I'll push a ranunculus down here or there or anywhere. And then we're going to finish this baby off. Okay, so now that I have made my bouquet, it's time to tie off my bouquet. I was always taught to tie my bouquets with wax string, and I did that for many years, but now I'm so super duper into this waterproof tape, and this is pretty much my only method. I like it because it's really easy to do even when I have something in my hand, and I'll just cut off a little piece of tape and wrap it around. What I like about this compared to the wax string that I was taught to use is I would find the wax string would sometimes like dig into delicate juicy stems like ranunculus. Sometimes the wax flower would just, the wax string would be so tight and pulling on it that it would break the stem, frankly, or at least give like an indentation or groove into the stem. But with the tape, I mean, it's so, like, I mean, you can see it's so totally sturdy. You can see my spirals here. That's how you do it. That's how it's done, people. That's how it's done. And yeah, then I can go back around here. Sometimes I'll tuck things in, like I'll tuck it behind a spray rose, perhaps, for example, so that the spray rose kind of holds the weight of the flower and helps it stay in place so it's not like hanging out the end there and drooping. And of course, my wedding is tomorrow, so I will revisit this bouquet tomorrow morning, and usually that's when I will also tie ribbons on it. I don't do tons of ribbon, actually. I will show you what I do. Again, it was the way I was taught, and I still do it that way. So here's the bouquet, and let's tie it off. Finish this job. So before I tie off the bouquet, I'm going to cut my stems and shorten it. So what I do is I just hold it right underneath the tape. If I ever need to remove this tape, by the way, and like remake the bouquet, I can do that super duper easily, and I can actually reuse this tape. So like if I decide tomorrow, oh, you know what, I'd like to move, here, I'll get up like this so you can see me. Like if I'm looking at it going, oh, you know, I'd like to add a little something back here or over here, I can just take the tape off and add to it. Or conversely, I don't have to take the tape off at all. I can just add to it and then retape over it. So I think you're picking up what I'm throwing down. I really dig using this tape. So I'm going to cut the stems. I cut them a little bit long at first because as you know, you can always cut something shorter, but you can never put back stem you've already cut. So, and I usually will take some photos and then like recut the bouquet. And like I said, I'll often tie it in the morning, and then I will recut it then as well. So I will cut. This is not exactly perfectly beautiful in terms of the stems, but my bouquet will most likely stand, I believe. I think I got one ranunculus acting a little funky, but for the most part, it's going to stand on its own. So what I'll do is I just put it right back into my little mason jar while I get my ribbon prepped. Now, normally the way I tie my ribbon is I put the bouquet between my knees and I'm kind of like down low doing my thing. So I'll do my best to make sure you can see it. I don't use super duper fancy expensive ribbons. I just don't. But I like this double-faced satin, and I will use, quite frankly, oftentimes green, just because I think it matches the stems. And I sort of feel like with ribbon, unless someone's super duper into like a particular color, when the stems match the ribbon, it's sort of like your lipstick matching your face, not your outfit. That's sort of how I describe it to my brides. Like if you don't have a color that you want, I think green is like a really simple, easy way to go. So I always measure like a tailor's yard. And these are not my great ribbon scissors. Always have a ribbon scissor, always have the right tool for the right job. So then what I will often do is put the ribbon in my mouth. And then I look for the front of the bouquet. That's really what I want to do, is take the bouquet and look around for like its best side, basically. With this particular bouquet, again, because I know she really loves the glads and things, and she also likes color. I don't know, I kind of like all sides of it. All sides of this bouquet are like a little bit different, like sort of like a little more pink over here, a little more white over here, a little more blue, depending on how you look at it. I'm going to pick... Maybe I should do this part off camera. I'm gonna pick this as the front over here with the Lysianthus coming at me. So when I'm looking at this, this is my front of my bouquet. And so what I'm gonna do, so because I can't show you how to do this if I put it between my knees, I'm gonna just prop it up in this vase here. And hang on, let me get a bucket. I'll be right back. Okay, now you can see where my bouquet is tied, and what I always do is go around to make sure I'm covering up the tape first. So that is the very first step I will take. So again, I'm going to check my front, get a good arm shot there. All right, so I'm covering the tape. Then I'm just going to go side to side, right? I'm just pulling the ribbon around just like you would if you tied any old thing. I'm going to wrap it back around to the front. And now I'm twisting. Do you see this? I'm crisscross, and then I'm twisting like this. And it's going to create this kind of cute little knot. I dig it. And if I'm doing my super simplest tie, this is it. This will be for bridesmaids, this will be for moms, for any flower girls, anybody. If I'm trying to do something that's bridal but not tons of ribbon, that's all I do. Just a quick twist, makes that nice little knot, and then I'll just tie it in the back. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. And always, I like to pull it, make sure the knot is nice and tight. And then I always, always, always cut the ends. I like to cut it sort of like that deep V, and you can do it however you want. And of course, you can add more ribbons. You can always have this just sort of be your basic starting, like cover up, right? It's like your cover your mechanics material. And then you can always add more ribbons here. This way, I feel like it's nice and easy for me to explain to the bride, like, here's your front, here's your back. And look, if she carries it backwards, it's still pretty. It's not like there's like a bad side, but I do like to tell them that. And then additionally, I give them a quick little tutorial, actually, when I deliver the bouquet. I tell them that you want to carry it nice and low, down by your hips. And I'll get up on my toes here, because if we're nervous and we carry it here, right, we're like behind the bouquet by the time we get down the aisle. But if we start nice and low, even if we get nervous, you can still see our face. So that's what I teach my people. I give them a little tutorial. And I always tell them knots in the back, but it's okay. If you carry it backwards, it's not a problem. Here's the side, right? And when I'm photographing bouquets, I actually tend to always take a picture of the back of the bouquet, because the back of the bouquet should be really beautiful and special for the bride, because that's what she's looking at. So, pay attention to these little details when you are doing your bridal work. So, happy designing. Keep doing beautiful work. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Hey, don't forget to check out my online courses and additional free tutorials at realflowerbusiness.com.